What is up, everybody? It's your boy Herf here, back on the Duel Entertainment channel, and today we got the top 5 techs for the KC Grand Tournament. And yeah, so basically I'm just going to be going over things that kind of always come up during the KC Grand Tournament, as well as things that I think will be good in the KC Grand Tournament. So let us just jump right in. So number one. DD Crow is an absolutely insane hand trap that we got added, and I didn't see a lot of use at first, but basically all it says is during either player's turn you can discard this card to the graveyard and target one card here in your opponent's graveyard and banish that target. So this card is super good versus anything that likes to recycle stuff from their graveyard. So things like Resonators, this thing dunks on, as well as Fire Kings, it dunks on. Like I said, pretty much anything that wants to keep stuff in their grave. So Shiranui, this will do really well against. All of those decks that value their graveyard, DD Crow will slap. And that's why I think this card is just going to be super good, and you're going to see a lot of people playing it, just purely because if it's insane value, easy, activation requirement, you just have to draw it, and it works, and it can be played in either player's turn. So you can actually wait for the opponent to activate the tuner in the grave, and then you just hit it. Or they can target the tuner to special summon off a Red Rising Dragon, then banish it. It's actually like an insane card, so definitely think that this will be seeing play in pretty much every deck. I think you're gonna see a lot of this.
Number 2.
I think that this card will see a huge uptick in play, just because it's a Fiend Monster. So the reason why that's important is because it's actually searchable off of the Demon's Resonance skill, so that's actually kind of insane because the worst matchup people think for Resonators is Shiranui, and this card does really well against Shiranui, as well as it's searchable. So a searchable counter to your worst matchup is pretty dang good, as well as it's a level 4, so it's very easily used for Exceeds plays in other decks as well. So if, let's say, Harpies wanted to play this card, they could use this card to Exceeds if you draw it in like a not relevant matchup, although it's pretty much relevant versus everything. So if you're playing against, like I said, Fire King, Shiranui, not Resonators though. This card doesn't do much against Resonators. So maybe you're playing Harpies and you're playing against Resonators. Maybe you use this to go into a Roach. I mean, because why not, right? It's a level 4, you can use it, and yeah, it's amazing if you draw it in a good matchup, and it's still usable if you draw it in a bad matchup. So I think that this card, alongside DD Crow, so for a lot of the same reasons, I think this will see a lot of play as well.
Number 3.
For this one, I'm going to choose both of the Imprisoning Mirrors. Both of these cards see a ton of play. I think Shadow Imprisoning Mirror is going to see a lot more play than Light Imprisoning Mirror, just because there's not as many light monsters in the meta right now. So definitely Shadow Imprisoning Mirror and maybe Light Imprisoning Mirror. This card's not as good though, but Shadow Imprisoning Mirror is actually insane right now, just because if we all assume that Resonators are going to be like the most played deck, as well as Thunder Dragons are always highly played in KC Cups just because they're fast, as well as if you look at Onomats as well, they have a lot of dark monsters. So Shadow Imprisoning Mirror, definitely worth to consider running, and I think some people will, just purely because it shuts down so many good decks, and it can't be hit by Trunade. So if Resonators go second with Trunade, you just flip this up, can't get Trunaded, which is why this card is super, super strong, and I definitely think this will see a lot of play. I'm not sure as much about Light Imprisoning Mirror. This card was super popular during Blue Eyes meta because obviously they're all lights, and just purely because it negates the field and grave, which is insane. So I don't know why that they put these two in the grave, or two in the game, but that we don't have Imprisoning Mirrors for all of the attributes. I think that this really holds back a lot of decks because they have to play through Imprisoning Mirrors if they're light or dark, right? So it just feels like they're biased against these two attributes. But anywho, moving on to the next two techs.
Number 4.
Stygian Durge. This card is very, very strong, and we're starting to see it be played a lot just because it shuts down any kind of synchro or Xyz based strategy, because it says reduce the levels of all monsters your opponent controls by 1. that is like really good. Just honestly, it's very very strong. Just because, basically, if you think about the top decks right now, like resonators, harpies, onomats, all of these, water, but water doesn't get hit by this as much. But basically, and Shiranui as well get hit by this. Any Xyz or synchro based strategy gets dunked on by this. So like Thunder Dragons, they have non, synchro and Xyz, outs, right? They have Levianeer. But if you put this on the field, you cannot get OTK'd unless they draw Levianeer, which is really strong. So basically, versus the vast majority of the meta, I'd say it's only not really relevant versus Fire Kings because they just have like an insane grind game and they can kill you without it. However, it does kind of stop if they want to go into Utopia Reichis or like other Xyz. So it's not awful versus Fire Kings, and that's like the worst thing. I mean, I guess it could be bad versus Goki as well, but nobody plays Goki. But like I said, any synchro or Xyz based strategy, this thing will absolutely destroy. And pretty much every deck is now playing Xyz just because we have good generic level 4s. Like, we have Malevolent Sin and Dweller, which are awesome. So that's why I don't see why you wouldn't play this deck. I think that this card will definitely be considered after this KC Grand Tournament for a potential semi-limit because it's such an insane floodgate, as well as it's a continuous trap, so it can't be hatronated. It can't, I think this card is almost better than Necro Valley, honestly. It's very close with Necro Valley because if you play this in Red Resonators, right, you can just flip this up early, and then you have a floodgate, an active floodgate, as well as if they try to remove it, you can still have Scolding. So that's pretty nuts, honestly. I mean, I don't really see anything that strong in the metagame. But anyways, moving on to probably my favorite card, number 5.
Number 5.
So this card sees a ton of play, pretty much every like KC Cup or KC Grand Tournament, but it never sees play outside of that. And so the reason why I think that this card is so good is because if you play Destiny Draw, this is a free hand rip out of your opponent's hand. You get to see their entire hand. Granted, they get to see your entire hand. So you get to disrupt something before it even has a chance to come to the field. So we have no way to play around this right now. We have no interaction with the pointer of the Red Lotus, right? Besides like hitting it with CC after it's set. But if you go first with this card, it will resolve 100% of the time because we have no way to block traps. So first of all, that is insanely strong. Okay. You get to rip a starter out of the opponent's hand or something that may be problematic for you. And you get to see the rest of their hand. So you know their follow-up. You could literally, if I was playing this card in KC Grand Tournament, I would have a notebook with me, and every time I activated this card, I would write down what I knew from their hand and then cross it off as I see them playing it. I mean, because anytime you get to gain that much information, you should always attempt to make the most out of it. So just the raw information, and as well as it's a Saki card. Right, especially if you pair it with Destiny Draw, because you activate Destiny Draw by yourself. You don't need your opponent to attack into you. So let's say they don't attack into you because they don't want to trigger Destiny Draw. And then you end phase, activate a pointer, rip a card out of their hand that they might use as disruption, and then you get to combo. Right, so like if they had Skullmeister and I'm playing Fire Kings, I would end phase, a pointer, rip the Skullmeister out of their hand, and then, my Garunix is free for next turn. So honestly, it's such a strong card, and I guess you can see why it wouldn't get played normally, just because, Destiny Draw decks usually like to play other stuff, as well as it really works once. It works once super strong, and then after that, the opponent may try to play around it more. They may, set more cards than normal. They may, as well as you have to show your own hand, which can, if your opponent makes the most of that, can kind of handicap you as well. However, it's still just, I don't know, in my opinion, insane. Like, there's no reason not to play this card, honestly. But, anywho, that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you hit like, comment, subscribe, join the Discord so you can get updated about when these videos release, as well as that's how you join our tournaments, get free new player help, all that kind of fun stuff. And then make sure you check out the Twitch because that's where we host tournaments. And I think Mythyard is going to be doing a allegedly 72-hour KC Grand Tournament stream, so make sure you check that out. Man's going to be going in. So I will see you all on the flippity flip, and peace out.